Okay, let's see. Hello. So I'm waiting to get our code person in here. If I can figure out how to. Okay. Hello, everyone. So I'm just messaging our co-person for today because I think they need to be watching to do this. What's that? No questions yet. Okay. So we're going to be talking about some self-care today, and we're a little early, so come on in. What am I looking for? There you go. My questions. So I would say I don't know who of you. I know. There we go. There we can get Claire in and Seaboard. This is my first time being live. There'll probably be a lot of us on here that this is our first time. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm still living in Brooklyn. It just started raining. No nice, calm day.
Yep, that's what I was. Yeah, I was sitting down and I was like, "Oh, good. We're gonna get some nice ambience for our video chat."
Exactly.
Get some hellos. Cool. So I guess we can jump right on in. So today our topic is self-care. I said we're not going to start with the exact first question that we have here. I'm just interested to hear like what are you doing right now as far as some of your self-care goes?
Yeah, so honestly, most of my self-care is just sort of allowing myself to become more flexible with the new schedule that we kind of have to adapt to, because I'm a person that tends to be very scheduled, very regimented, very productive. So this whole limitation has been really hard for me. But just kind of being able to breathe, step back, and be like, I can still work within what I have in my apartment, and just sort of allowing myself to let go a little bit. It's been a little hard, but slowly it gets a little easier each day, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's definitely, I think, because so career center, we've been getting a lot of questions about like, well, what's happening with hiring, what's happening with that, and it's like it's only been a couple, like it feels like forever, but
Yeah.
in the reality of the world, it hasn't been super long, and a lot of us are still figuring out what does it mean to work from our homes right now. So
Yeah.
once we figure that out, then we can start to think about like then we businesses specifically will be able to start to think about like, cool, can we bring more people on now that we know how we even work?
Yeah, definitely. And also just remembering that like everyone's kind of in the same boat right now. So, being able to like from a social distance, like talk to your friends and everything, and just kind of like working through it together. I feel like just having that solidarity has really been helping too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Cool. So I guess we're going to jump in. So we have some questions that we've gotten ahead of time, but if you guys have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and we'll sort of jump between whatever seems interesting. So I guess at the starting is like, what does self-care mean, especially during a time like this? I think some of the things that I originally was saying, it's definitely honesty. Hopefully that's not the first time you all are hearing this, but like, this is trauma. Like, what we're all going through right now. There's a lot of stuff happening in the world to all of us individually. So really being honest with ourselves that like you can't necessarily do everything right now, and that there's a lot of like specific symptoms of going through a trauma that we're all going through right now that's going to stop us from potentially being our most productive selves, despite how the world is sometimes trying to tell us like right now you can do anything you want to do. If you're not doing it, then you're not doing it, then you just don't want to do it. That's not right. We are all going through a thing right now, and we're all tired, we're all adjusting to new things. So I think it really starts with one, that honesty of where am I right now, but also kindness to both yourself and others, like really getting yourself adjusted to the fact that like maybe I didn't get as much done today as I had planned on doing, and allowing yourself to know that that is okay. And like if there's people around you that are also like frustrating you in other ways, knowing that that's okay as well.
And if it's okay if I jump in, now being able to have more time, at first it was like a little bit frustrating being like, oh my god, I have so many hours of the day that you just have to find a fill. But I've actually found like a better way to look at it for me is now I'm like, oh, if I'm feeling stressed out because of one class or something in particular one day, I actually now like have more time to, you know, take a step back, be like, I'm gonna, you know, from the food that I have, cook a meal for myself. I'm gonna take a step back and actually like take a bath or just something that's relaxing, and then being like, and I have more time tomorrow to like put my best self forward and sit down and get this done, rather than I feel like before when our lives were just all busy or kind of feeling a rush. Like you have to schedule in time for self-care. You have to schedule in like time to make a project happen in 3 hours or something, you know? And that's like just a great way that I've been thinking about it.
Yeah, no, that's really important. Is like even right before this, like my self-care of this morning was like I took a little bit of a rest before we did this because I was feeling a little fatigued. So I was like, let me lay down for a few minutes. And I have the time to do that because it's like, well, it's right there. I don't need to get all the way home and then I can do it. Lack of commute time is great.
Exactly.
So I guess really, are you seeing a difference in your self-care now than it was before we all moved to virtual and social distancing?
Yeah, I personally feel like there's a bit of a difference in now that I almost feel like I have, in a weird way, I feel like I'm acknowledging more like my choice for self-care, as where before, you know, just kind of be like, oh, like a class got out early and I'm able to like fit in like a face mask or something now, you know, something like that. But now it's like I wake up in the morning, I'm kind of like, oh, well, today, like I feel like I deserve this thing to treat myself, or like I'll, you know, go outside for the first time in a week and buy ice cream. Just something that like for me just helps, like I'm making a choice for myself, and I feel like that's the big difference in terms of that. But then also a thing that I've noticed is that while you just have more time with yourself and less time like around your physical support system, which can definitely be hard. So still, like, you know, I'm still talking to my family and friends and everything, but it you know, it's just kind of learning how to, I guess, like move forward when your support system is just different and you have different access to those people that like help you get through normally.
Yeah, no, it's definitely very like how you check in with people has changed a lot. I know me and my friend group have done a couple of different shifts in what we do. You know, like we now have a weekly movie night, which we kind of always had, but it's just different now, and it's slightly different people in there. And even I do think, and then it's a huge thing that I know has been coming up is even just, let's say this in my notes later, but let's talk about it now, is even the access people can have of you is, I feel like before canceling plans was like, oh no, I can't go to dinner right now, but now it's like, oh, I don't have an excuse to not do a like dinner chat with someone, but that it's also okay to not do the dinner chat with someone if you're just like over videoed for the day or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So what are some things, I guess our next big question is, how can I make sure I'm taking care of myself? So I have a couple things I'll put in for that. So one is, I kind of said this, like do check in with yourself throughout the day. What are you feeling? Is there something that you can definitely point to that's causing it? Because it might be like, oh, I'm feeling really lonely right now, and that's why I'm sad. And then maybe you'd set up a check-in with one of your friends or family members, finding that support network and really leaning on them to see who's around and free. But sometimes there's going to be feelings that you're like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I just don't feel good right now. And the part of the self-care is finding what could make me feel, and not thinking of it as a band-aid on a situation that's not good. That's always a big thing with self-care, is people don't want it to become. Sorry, I get very distracted by chats. It's very bad.
I get it.
Yeah. But to make sure that like you're looking at it not as like, okay, I'm gonna go have this bubble bath and then everything's gonna necessarily be okay. Doesn't necessarily work like that, but that bubble bath can help put you in a place where you might start to be able to be productive again, or at least change up your chat a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So what are some things you are doing to make sure that you are taking care of yourself?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of like similar to what we were mentioning earlier, and I know that this is just something that's really big for me, but just like allowing myself to be flexible and just like allowing, like not being so hard on myself and just sort of, and again, I think that's just kind of with what we were talking about with honesty earlier, like being honest about the situation and just saying, like, I just don't have access or like I can't do these things right now, but don't let that self get me down. I kind of take it now as like a fun challenge of like, what can I make happen with what I have already, which is like something that I kind of already do in my art practice. So it's just sort of like, I'm just trying to make a game out of it in a way, because that's just like, I can trick my brain to doing that. But then also like, I think one thing too is kind of like figuring out how I work best. Again, now that just like work, home, social life, that's all becoming one space. So definitely it can be like a little confusing and boundaries kind of can get blurred, I guess. But you know, whether that's for me like before Zoom class, just putting on like a tiny bit of makeup because that's something that helps me feel good, and like that's what I would do in school anyway. So even just waking up and kind of doing like part of a routine, that helps me finding a space in my apartment that I feel like I can concentrate, where I feel like, and for me that just happens to be my bedroom because I feel very comfortable, just sort of, it's my space. I can, you know, work through whatever I need to work through, whether that's school, with friends, that thing. So that's been an important like part of myself that I guess I've been trying to get familiar with. And then I would say, like, the last thing that I feel like is important is actually trying to make like a meal schedule for yourself, which also I feel like is a common piece of advice like college students get anyways. But especially now, and you know, if I'm not like staying at home or anything with my parents, just trying to like, you know, wake up in the morning, make sure I'm still eating breakfast at a breakfast hour and not at like 3 p.m. Just even like just that kind of schedule and just making me feel a bit more energized and motivated. That's been helping a lot.
Mm-hmm. No, the schedule is
like a stress reliever for me.
Yeah. No, definitely food is going to be really important. I see two sides of this. One is the people that are like, I can eat all the time, always, now that I'm home. Or there's like, I tend to fall on the side of like, oh, I've been working for 10 hours and I haven't eaten anything yet today. And both of those are going to lead to different feelings that you're going to be having about yourself at different points. So definitely having that schedule and sort of forcing yourself of like getting up. Or even one of the things I've really found is finding those little things that you can sort of like look forward to in a week is going to be really helpful. So even if it's like, oh, I planned this really exciting, like I have my favorite meal I'm going to make later today, like something like that can be a really great thing to be having ready to go, just for like, if you're starting to feel down, you can be like, oh wait, but I have this food planned. I'm a huge planner of my meals. It's all basically what I think about between anything I'm doing at any time.
Yeah, same here.
It's a very important part of it. So I think that's definitely going to be a really important thing. There's something else you had said that I thought was really good. I don't remember it. Whatever. Okay. Yeah, I'll think of it later on. It'll come back as far as you going. Cool. So then, I guess our next question is, okay, meditation, breathing, exercise, and breathing exercise. So I think you said you're not really much of a meditator, but you do some breath work throughout your day now.
Yeah, definitely. Because I just find myself that there'll kind of be a certain point of day where I just need to sit and like just take a deep breath. Or even now, just like I have gotten better at recognizing when I'm starting to feel stressed about maybe, you know, something that is potentially manageable. Like if I'm just feeling stressed out by like schoolwork, or if some reason like I don't feel like I have enough time to get everything done, even though I kind of have all the time in the world now. I just like have notes where I can like take a step away from my laptop and just like close my eyes and take a really deep breath, like maybe like 2-3 breaths, and then that kind of helps me center a bit. And I feel like I just have a clearer head so that I can like look at my planner and I'm able to like, you know, cross things out, switch it around, and just sort of figure out like what's the best schedule for me. So I've been getting better at like not really just letting myself get caught up in things like that. So breathing's helped me there for sure.
Yeah. No, that's really very awesome. We talk about that a lot in our office. And that's definitely, anxiety itself like does lead to manifestations in your breathing. We actually just had a conversation with someone from the health office yesterday who we're starting up a new thing. We have a ton of meditation resources. If you're interested, it's Mindful Prat is basically what you would look for out in the world. It's commons.mindfulprat or commons.prat.edu/mindfulprat. Pratt email or Pratt websites. But we were talking a lot about how, like, especially when COVID itself is a breathing based infection that you can get, like, that can also add to your anxiety of going on. But a lot of what it is like, often when you're having anxiety, it's going to be up here in your chest area that you're really feeling your breath. You might be breathing heavier than usual. You might be breathing faster than usual. So taking that step back to really focus on, like, am I breathing right now, and taking those deep breaths are really good. It doesn't take long for you to fully sort of reoxygenate your body and get yourself back down to the left. Great. So my boss just put in the Commons website into the chat. Thank you, Rhonda, for us. So you can see all the stuff we have going on there. But yeah, definitely taking that step back, even if it's just 30 seconds, is going to do a lot to help your body sort of calm down, refocus on what you're doing, and get you able to move forward in what you want to accomplish next.
Definitely. And even, like, the current climate's kind of made me more aware of, like, there's no distractions to, I guess, like, enable me to kind of ignore the anxiety that I may be feeling. Yeah, so that's been really good. We're now, like, I just definitely feel like I'm more aware of, like, because I do get what you mean, like, my chest, when I feel anxious, my chest kind of almost tightens up a bit, but now I'm, like, able to recognize that more, and I'm like, okay, no, we're not going to do this. Take a step back.
And that's it. And you say you don't meditate, but that's like, that's it. That's a meditation practice. That's something we talk about a lot called mindfulness, where it even just starts with just noting, of kind of going like, oh, like, my chest is getting tight, like, interesting, like, yeah. I don't want this to happen. This is what I can do to start to fix that type of thing. And that's really, I'm going to kind of jump to our how you can begin to meditate on your own bit. But, like, if it's something you've thought about, or even, like, you're like, cool, breathing, start with that. I always like to add that it's like, meditation is not just about shutting down your thoughts. It's not about, like, going to your zen thoughtless, like, place of nothing going on. Thoughts are always going to happen. We are humans. Like, we hear a noise and you go down a spiral of thoughts of what's going on. It's just starting to bring an awareness of, like, oh, I heard a noise and suddenly I'm 5 years ago in this other situation. Like, that's really interesting. And then pulling yourself back to that present moment to kind of teach yourself to get out of some of those paths that we often find ourselves falling down pretty regularly. But as far as starting, there's a ton of things out there. Like, the Mindful Pratt website is a great starting point. There's also apps. There's tons of free apps. There's, like, the Plum Village app, Insight Timer. You can also just, if you are a podcast person, there's a ton of meditation podcasts out there that you can always listen to. But sometimes it's just 30 seconds of, I'm going to step away, I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to just breathe right now, and just starting with that practice and see what happens.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then also something I feel like has helped me a little bit too, which, you know, may be a good, like, starting entry into meditation, is just, like, basic stretching in the morning as well. Because I definitely noticed that throughout the first few weeks of quarantine that, frankly, just because, you know, you're in your bed all the time, that I would wake up, like, really stiff, and I would just hurt, and then I wouldn't really want to do too much. Like, I wouldn't be as motivated to, like, cook a huge meal. I wouldn't be as motivated to, you know, work on, like, an in-depth project or something for class. But even just taking, like, 5 minutes just to sort of let everything, like, crack and stretch and all that, that I've noticed actually has made, like, a really big difference. And I find I go through this pattern where I'll do really well, like, stretching every morning, and then I'll kind of stop, and then when I return to it, I forget how much it helps me.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I do, now me and my roommate at 5 o'clock, I, like, drag them out of their room to do some yoga with one of the YouTube yoga things. And I don't do it over the weekend. It's like, this is my weekday thing. But every now and then on Monday, I'm like, oh, yep, I got stiff again. It's definitely, it's one thing actually that's been the good part of coming out of all of this, is I've been meaning to start up, like, a at-home yoga practice for a very long time, and now it's like, no, I don't have to commute, so I'll just do yoga instead.
Exactly. And now, like, we have all these resources that, you know, like, professionals are putting on YouTube and Instagram Live and stuff like that a lot more. So definitely, like, it's also, you know, a good way to look at, like, taking advantage of, like, all these resources that you may not have necessarily had before.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah.
Yeah, no, there's tons of stuff out there. Whatever type of fitness you are interested in, you can find it. And there's a lot out there, like if you're more of a weights person, there's a lot of like body weight training out there. There's a lot of like what can you do with what's just happens to be sitting around. Like maybe you're filling a jug with water and you're using that as your weight, stuff like that. Like finding ways to just like work with what you have.
Getting creative.
Yeah, get creative with it. Take some photos. Maybe you'll go viral.
Exactly.
If that's what you want.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's see. So then our next is just, yeah, staying motivated, which I think we've talked a lot about sort of this stuff already. Yeah, staying and motivated. Oh, I guess the one thing I wanted to bring up in this, oh, there we go. A lot of lifting with Campbell's chunky soup cans. Yes, that's a really good idea, Jasmine. So whatever you got, it'll do something. Keep you in shape. Yeah, so staying sane and motivated. So as I said, we talked about setting schedules. That's going to be important. One thing I definitely wanted to touch on is like the myth of inspiration. I feel like that's a huge thing. And I know I've talked to students. I graduated from Pratt a few years ago, and I've fallen in this before. I'm like, but I'm just not inspired enough to do the work right now. And the whole deal of like real world is you have a deadline coming up. And sometimes even like your really terrible, gross sketch that you're like, cool, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be working on this, can often be the catalyst that really gets those creative juices flowing again. Sometimes I know I'm a big doodler, and sometimes just doodling for a little bit will get me out of that sort of funk to be like, okay, cool, now that I've started doing the thing, I might as well actually do the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely I've been going through that as well. And like, obviously just a lot of students that I've talked to. And I feel like, at least like for me, something that I was getting like kind of down to is like, obviously when, you make work, you want to like make the best quality work you can. You want to like really just put your whole heart into whatever you're doing. But right now, just we can't necessarily do that for one reason or another. So I've just been trying to kind of look at like my projects more as just like exercise, or like, creativity is a muscle. Just like running a marathon, you can't do it all in a day. So I just kind of look at that as like each assignment, so just some little exercises to keep my brain working. And I'll write down ideas if I like think of, oh, when I have access to this and this, I'll start on this next project. And just sort of trying to just remember that like this isn't how it's going to be forever, and that like inspiration will come, and that just trying not to put, again, just about not putting as much pressure on yourself, I think. And that you don't have to make perfect art right now, and it's okay, like you don't have a fully realized idea, or if you can't fully get what's in your head in reality right now. And especially too, like I, at least like critiques that I've had in some of my studio classes, I've had a lot of support from both my professors and my classmates when I can just write a little document saying, hey, like this isn't ideally how I'd like to show it, here's how like I imagined it in my head, here are some things that maybe I would want to continue with once I have access to this and this. And that's also really helped me too, just like where my peers can they can comment on what I've literally been uploading to Google Docs and stuff like that, but then also I really like this idea and how this may go, may eventually do this. So I'm kind of getting both sides of like what I want to be doing and what I'm actually able to do.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I think, going to be the hardest part, is that access to all of the like tools that you're used to having access to. But it's also a fun time to get to try like new things. I think I saw something with a art teacher that was just using like random stuff around the house. It's like, here's how you can paint without actually having paint around. Yeah, I think that's going to be, I think one thing I keep thinking about is back, I think it was the 2013 when Pratt had the fire in the main building, and that just devastated the painting studios basically, and a lot of people lost their thesis. So recently one of the seniors during that, Milo, wrote something that's on medium.com. If you just kind of Google like Pratt thesis destroyed fire, you'll find the article. But it's really interesting in that article to be able to see like all of the new art processes that people got, because they were getting a lot of art supplies that weren't necessarily the art supplies they needed by donations, but they were free donations. So they're like, cool, I guess I'm going to use this. And how many of them are still using those processes in their artwork today? So it's like you might come up with something during this time that you're like, cool, this is what I do now. Like, I'm the person that uses rubber bands to do stuff now because I just had a ton of rubber bands lying around my house. So, like, being able to, yeah, look at it. Definitely, I think, twist it to the good of not like, oh no, I don't have anything to work with, but like, okay, cool, here's the materials I have. What can I do with that? Can be good.
I feel like also just being at home where like I know that I fall into this as well. A lot of the I guess like fear that maybe some students have is that you will try something new and it doesn't work out well. And I definitely get it. Like there's nothing worse than getting a bad critique. But definitely, you know, when you're at home too, I definitely feel like though now that kind of provides you a lot more freedom to just play around with materials and play around with new art practices just because, without necessarily thinking about like how, you know, your peers or how school will react or something, you know, and just kind of, which I also obviously feel like goes into self-care, just choosing what you want to do for yourself. And even if it's like, you know, just on the side, you're working with some new material that you may just want to keep for yourself, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely, this is a chance to try new things. Also, it's kind of the fun freedom of the pass fail is like you tried something and it didn't necessarily work out, but you tried something.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that matters. Like, you guys have so much freedom to try stuff right now, and I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think we're basically at our ending here. I don't know if you have any last thoughts or if anyone has any last questions to throw in here.
No, I mean, I definitely think this was like a really like productive conversation, and definitely like it helped me kind of like I know we talked a little bit before, but it helped me think of some points too that I just like hadn't fully like necessarily thought of, like especially like well, I guess I realized I talked about it a lot without realizing it, but like changing perspective on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was something I wasn't fully aware that I was even doing before this. But it's
that's it. It's kind of it's like if you can, and it's like the big thing we say in meditation, you might not be able to be fully go from like this terrible situation is actually really exciting, but if you can even just turn a little bit towards like maybe this isn't the worst possible place for me to be, like those little changes can really do a lot to bring you at least a little bit up in where you are, and hopefully keep getting stuff done and keep definitely putting yourself as someone that deserves care and deserves some time for yourself, whatever that form ends up looking like in this time.
Exactly. And I also just wanted to say that, you know, through Seaboard, we are promoting other like club opportunities and stuff like that for students, you know, who may feel like they just want to get involved in something, they want something to do. Definitely like people can look on our Instagram for those opportunities and those other outlets.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Look at Seaboard stuff in there. That's the account that Claire is on right now. So you can just follow right over there. Okay. So I think we're going to head out. And if you guys have questions or thoughts, you can message us. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I just hit end and cool.